there is this immutable core of shame and vulnerability and fragility. These are critical differences, and people don't exist externally. You exist only, you don't see the covert narcissist coming, because so the narcissist will treat you. As long as the narcissist is successful in narcissism is basically divided in two big groups. Narcissistic personality disorder is a serious, severe, whereas the psychopath knows exactly what reality pushes back. Reality is harsh. In order to gaslight, you need to be able to tell the difference between, because this kind of mother is not only abusive, but this kind of mother prevents the child from, but psychopathy is triggered by this kind of treatment, parental treatment. It's there, it's latent, it's waiting to erupt, and then it's triggered by, you're not allowed to, you will never experience. The damage is tremendous. All individuals possess narcissism.
Today's episode is a powerful one. We're diving deep into the complex world of narcissism with none other than Professor Sam Vaknin, a globally recognized authority on narcissistic personality disorder, psychopathy, and abuse. He's the author of Malignant Self-Love, Narcissism Revisited, a groundbreaking book that has become essential reading for anyone trying to understand the narcissistic mind. With this unique combination of academic rigor and lived experience, Professor Vaknin offers piercing insights into the roots, manifestations, and consequences of narcissistic behavior, both in individuals and in society. Whether you've encountered narcissism personally or want to better understand it through a psychological and philosophical lens, this conversation is one you won't forget. Take a listen. Welcome to the Chris Senise Podcast, where we have 1% better each day, one episode at a time, because small strides make the biggest impact. I'm very excited to have Sam Vaknin here on our episode today. He's going to be giving us a little more information on narcissism. Thank you, Sam, for being on our episode.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, in my search on narcissism, much to my surprise, even though I thought I knew what it was that there are many forms of narcissism, not just one type of narcissism where it seems like perhaps there's an unfair disadvantage with someone's behavior over somebody else. There are many types of narcissism. I'd like to start there. What can you share with us today?
Well, when things go wrong, they can go wrong in various ways, obviously. And narcissism is about things going wrong in early childhood. So when things go wrong in early childhood, some people, some children, a small minority, luckily for us, develop pathological narcissism, probably because pathological narcissism is somehow linked to a genetic predisposition. Although at this stage, we haven't been able to prove that there is a genetic background, hereditary background. We haven't been able to isolate the genes that supposedly predispose someone to develop pathological narcissism. But it stands to reason, because there's a group of children, they're all siblings, they're exposed to the same thing. So twins, they're twin studies, and then only one of them becomes a narcissist. So it stands to reason. And so actually, there are only two types of narcissists, not many. There is the overt narcissist. The overt narcissist is supremely confident, feels superior, lacks affective or emotional empathy, is demanding, is entitled, is exploitative, and is a bit psychopathic, is a bit antisocial. That's the overt narcissist. Now, mistakenly online, and there are many mistakes online, the vast majority of the information is mistaken, actually. So mistakenly online, people say that this is the grandiose narcissist, but all types of narcissists, all manner of narcissists, they're all grandiose. Grandiosity is a common feature to all varieties of narcissism. So this is the overt narcissist. The overt narcissist is happy-go-lucky, he's a go-getter, he's, as I said, supremely self-confident to the point of being a bit foolish. So he's a risk-taker, he's reckless, and when push comes to shove, he becomes a bit, as I said, psychopathic, defiant, and contumacious, rejecting of authority, and even criminalized. And then we have the covert narcissists, the vulnerable narcissists, fragile narcissists. There are many adjectives that are attached to this particular type of narcissism. It's a narcissist who is unable to obtain what we call narcissistic supply. Narcissistic supply is admiration, adulation, attention. This kind of narcissist keeps failing, is what we call a collapse narcissist. It's a narcissist who is not very efficient, not very efficacious at securing the recognition that he or she believes that they deserve. And so the covert narcissist is passive aggressive. He's seething with suppressed rage and envy. He's highly manipulative. I'm saying he, but half of all narcissists are women. He is highly manipulative. You don't see the covert narcissist coming because he puts on a facade of humility. So he has pseudo humility, fake modesty. He is also, in many cases, pro-social. In other words, it's a narcissist who derives his narcissistic supply by claiming to be morally superior, attaining the high moral ground, by being altruistic and charitable, but in an ostentatious way. Look at me. Look how charitable I am. Look what a wonderful person I am. Look how kind and nice and amazingly altruistic and helpful I am, and so on. So this is known as a prosocial or communal narcissist. The covert narcissist is also a phase. Today, we used to believe that all narcissists are either overt or covert. This used to be the belief until recently. But starting about 10 years ago, we have come to the conclusion that all narcissists are both overt and covert, that these are actually phases. As long as the narcissist is successful in obtaining narcissistic supply, the aforementioned attention, he is overt. But then when he fails, or when he is narcissistically injured, or when he is challenged, or when he is criticized, or when he's mocked and shamed and ridiculed, or when people disagree with him, or when people expose him for what he is, which is often a fraud or worse, at that point, the overt narcissist becomes covert. So it seems that all narcissists are both overt and covert. They have a core. The core is fragile and vulnerable and brittle. And then they have a facade, kind of an envelope or shell. And they present this facade to the world. And the facade is, I'm godlike, I'm perfect, I'm brilliant, I'm amazing, I'm a genius. I'm omniscient, I know everything, I'm all-knowing, I'm all-powerful, I'm omnipotent. I'm a god, I'm a divinity, But this facade is compensatory. It compensates for the fact that deep inside, there is this immutable core of shame and vulnerability and fragility. That's why the narcissist becomes very violent and very aggressive when you challenge the narcissist or when you criticize, because he's becoming defensive. He's defending the core. He can't afford to get in touch with this shame and this vulnerability because he will fall apart, a process known as decompensation and mortification. This, in a nutshell, is narcissism.
As you speak about the different types of narcissists, what's interesting about it is that I can run through so many personalities I've been exposed to in my own life, different types of, and I've heard you mention before that there are, I don't like to use the words good and bad, but there are, how about healthy? I think you've mentioned healthy narcissists, right? And
healthy narcissism. There are no healthy narcissists, but there's healthy narcissism.
Right. And the difference between narcissist and narcissism is narcissist is a person who's narcissistic.
Narcissism is a trait. We all possess narcissism.
Okay.
And there is a test. It's called Narcissistic Personality Inventory, NPI. Okay. And it allows us to measure the intensity and quantity of narcissism that any individual possesses. But all individuals possess narcissism. Healthy narcissism is the foundation of self-esteem and self-confidence and the ability to regulate your sense of self-worth and to trust yourself and to have your back and to be your own best friend. These are all dependent crucially on healthy narcissism.
Mm-hmm.
However, like everything healthy, like anything biological, it can go awry. It can become malignant, like a healthy cell, which becomes cancerous. Healthy narcissism can go cancerous on you and can become malignant narcissism. And malignant narcissism is basically divided in two big groups. There is
Okay.
what we call narcissistic style. Narcissistic style, these are people who are obnoxious, they are unpleasant, they are a-holes. They are not someone you would like to marry or befriend or work with or date.
Mm-hmm.
They are very exploitative and self-centered. Their empathy is a bit reduced. And so these are not nice people, but they're not mentally ill. There's no mental health issue there. They're just not nice people. It's a variant, it's a variety of character on character exactly like sexuality and so on is a spectrum. So you have unpleasant people around. It's a fact of life. And these people would have a narcissistic style. Narcissistic style has little to do with narcissistic personality disorder. Narcissistic personality disorder is a serious, severe mental illness. It involves a disruption in the formation of a functioning self. So narcissists don't have a functioning self. They're ironically selfless. And they don't have a core identity. They have what we call identity disturbance or identity diffusion. They can't tell the difference between external and internal. So they misidentify people as internal objects, and they treat people as if they are figments of the narcissist's mind. So the narcissist would treat you as an object, an extension, because you are inside his mind. You're not out there. There's a total confusion between external, out there, separate from me, and internal, in here, in my mind. So this is a very serious mental disease, psychological disease, and many eminent scholars, such as Otto Kernberg and many others, have suggested that narcissism is one step removed from schizophrenia or from psychosis, psychotic disorder. Luckily, only 1.7% of the population have narcissistic personality disorder. If you go online and listen to self-styled experts, you get the impression that everyone and his dog and his mother-in-law is a narcissist. But that is expressly untrue. Fewer than 2% of the population, probably 1%, have narcissistic personality disorder. There's another 5, 6, who knows, percent of the population who have a narcissistic style. They are simply unpleasant people, not nice people, not kind, not empathic, not compassionate, not affectionate, not attentive, self-centered, egotistical, exploitative, envious, and so on and so forth. But this has nothing to do with the disease, with the disorder. And that's where the confusion starts online. Another confusion online is between narcissism and psychopathy. Very often, behaviors that are attributed to narcissists are actually the behaviors of psychopaths, not of narcissists. For example, narcissists do not gaslight. Psychopaths do. In order to gaslight, you need to be able to tell the difference between reality and fantasy. Narcissists cannot tell the difference between reality and fantasy. Narcissism is a delusional disorder. They're no longer with us. They're completely crazy, you know? So when people say they're evil, they're cunning, they're scheming, they're manipulative, they gaslight, they're future fake, they're talking about psychopaths. They're not talking about narcissists. And so narcissism is a pitiful condition. Narcissists harm people. Of course, they harm people badly. They traumatize people severely. But they do so not intentionally. This is not premeditated. It's not part of a plan. There's no goal. They do so because they're unable to recognize your separateness and your externality and the fact that you have a life. They're threatened They're threatened by your independence and personal autonomy and agency and self-efficacy. They need to disable you because you exist inside the narcissist's mind, only there. And when you externally behave differently, when you challenge the internal object, this is a threat. So the narcissist, for example, has an image of you in his mind, a snapshot. The clinical term is introject, but it's like a snapshot, like a photograph. He has an image of you in his mind, and he continues to interact with that image, not with you. When you start to act independently, you're challenging the image because you're creating a discrepancy, a gap, a divide between you and the image. This is very threatening to the narcissist. It's like you're absconding with the narcissist's mind. So he needs to disable you. He needs to deactivate you. He needs you to become inert, a never moving object, an immobile object. So he needs to take your life away. And this is the damage that narcissists do. They kill you gradually, incrementally.
Mm-hmm.
They poison you slowly but inexorably. You die in increments, and ultimately you're totally paralyzed. You've lost your identity, you've lost your drive, you've lost your motivation, you don't know who you are anymore, you have no personal autonomy, you can't make decisions, you're totally paralyzed and disabled, and you're crippled. And so narcissism is slow-acting poison. But whereas the psychopath would do exactly the same, intentionally, he knows exactly what he's doing. He has a goal, he wants your money, he wants to have sex with you, something. The narcissist does this because of who he is or who she is.
Right.
I compare narcissists to viruses. It's like a virus, you know. You can't say that a virus is evil because the virus kills you. Viruses are not evil. They kill people because that's who they are, period. You know? Whereas the psychopath is cunning and scheming and criminalized and goal-oriented and deliberate. The narcissist would make you doubt your own judgment of reality, gaslighting. Narcissist would make you promises he never intends to keep. The psychopath, I'm sorry. The psychopath knows the difference between reality and fantasy. When he plunges you into fantasy, he knows he's deceiving you, the psychopath. Psychopaths are, if you wish, evil. Narcissists are just dangerous. Narcissists are dangerous, but they're not evil. Psychopaths are both dangerous and evil.
And would you say the difference between, I mean, you've explained a lot of differences, but it really just in the end comes down to intention, right? So the psychopath is very
Intention and the ability, not only intention, but the ability to tell apart reality and fantasy. The narcissist is immersed in a fantasy. He is delusional. He's psychotic. He's not with us. He's living in a dreamscape, which is his mind. And in this dreamscape, you exist as well, but as an internal object, as an avatar, as a representation. And he tours this imaginary space. He walks through it itinerantly, and he interacts with the various internal objects. And he's totally divorced from reality. Narcissist has what we call impaired reality testing. He's totally divorced from reality. He's sick. It's a mental illness. Whereas the psychopath knows exactly what he's doing. You have money. He wants your money. He will sell you on a fantasy. He will deceive you. He will make promises. He will pretend to be someone else. He will, play act and fake and everything. And then he will take your money and you will never see him again. That's a psychopath. That's not a narcissist. And the psychopath would keep telling you that reality is different to the way you perceive it. He would keep gaslighting you. That's a psychopath. That's not a narcissist. When the narcissist tells you something about reality, when he makes a statement about reality, it's not because he's trying to deceive you or make you doubt your own judgment. It's because he firmly and truly believes it. He truly believes his totally insane confabulations and nonsense and fantasies and science fiction stories. And he fully believes it, committed to it. He would defend it aggressively if you dare to challenge it, because he believes it's true. And when he makes you a promise, the narcissist, he has every intention in the world of keeping it. He intends to keep it. He just never keeps his promises. But he never keeps his promises because of the dynamic of the fantasy. But when he makes a promise, he has every intention to keep it. If he says, I'm going to marry you, he has every intention. If he says, we're going to have 3 children, if he says, we're going to move in together, or let's make a business and get rich, or whatever, he means it. He really is in it. Whereas a psychopath will tell you exactly the same things, knowing full well that he is lying to you and deceiving you and manipulating you because he wants something from you. These are critical differences, and people don't make these differences online.
I would agree with that because they see, if you look this up online, it just seems like they're 2 entirely different, and they are different, but it just seems that everything's dumped into this whole like bucket of narcissism, and there aren't many differentiations between the two. Let's go back a little bit because I've heard you mention that a lot of narcissism is often rooted with the mother, and you have this distinction between the first 3 years and the first 18 months. Can we talk about that a little bit? I think that's really important to understand. Something that's new to me for sure, but I would love to give our audience a little more information on that.
Well, that's not my view. It's the view of most of the major psychologists in the history of psychology, from Freud to Bowlby. I mean, it's not Sam Vaknin's view. All major psychologists agree that narcissistic, pathological narcissism at least, and other mental health issues, but mainly pathological narcissism, is the outcome of a problem with the formation of a self, some problem with the ability to maintain a sense of continuity, a sense of this is I, this is me, and I am the same today and tomorrow and the day after. Never mind what happens to me.
Right.
Whatever is happening to me. And this me is core, is immutable, unchangeable, is always me. The child who later in life becomes a narcissist was disrupted. This process of forming the self was disrupted. And the only person with the capacity to disrupt this is the mother. Because the father comes into play after age 36 months. The father becomes a very important figure when the child reaches the age of 3 years. Because the father then teaches the child all kinds of skills, teaches the child how to behave in society. The father is the purveyor and the conveyor of what we call social scripts and sexual scripts. The father is a critical figure after age 3 years old.
Okay.
Whereas prior to age 3 years old, the father's contribution is minimal. The reason the father's contribution is minimal is that for a very long time, the child is unable to recognize anyone except the mother. When the child is born, the newborn, the child is able to recognize the mother's face and react to it, but not the father's face. And for the first 18 months, the child defines itself in conjunction with the mother. Initially, the child is merged with the mother. This used to be called the symbiotic phase. The child was one with the mother. And then when the child finally acquires a sense of this is me and this is not me, the not me is the mother. The child defines itself in opposition to the mother, a process known as separation individuation. The mother, therefore, is the absolute determinant of the child's identity, emerging identity, nascent self. So the child first regards itself and mother and the world as a single entity. Then the child sees itself through the mother's gaze. The child realizes that mother is looking at me and I see myself through her gaze. So this means that I'm not mother. Oh, wait a minute, if I'm not mother, then there are 2 people here in the universe. And if there are 2, maybe there are more. And if there are more people out there, there's a concept of external and internal. So there are things out there that are not me. So then there are boundaries. These are boundaries. There are boundaries of the self. So All this is facilitated through the mother, exclusively through the mother. Now, when I say mother, it's important to emphasize, mother means anyone who fulfills the maternal functions. So it could be a single father.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have anything to do with genitalia. It has to do with who is fulfilling the maternal functions. Could be a grandmother, a grandfather, father, mother, a neighbor. Could anyone who is taken over. A child who is adopted, would have a foster mother. So anyone who fulfills these critical functions in the first 36 months is the mother. Starting at age 18, the child have already internalized the fact that he and mother, or the child and mother, are two separate entities, distinct from each other. Mother is out there, is external somehow, separate from the child. That is a very traumatizing realization. It's terrifying. The child doesn't feel safe anymore and so on. It's frightening to realize that mother is not you. Mother is someone else. Because if she's someone else, she can walk away. She can abandon you. You can die. It's terrifying. So the child begins to create an insurance policy. The child begins to separate from mother and explore the world. This process is known as separation individuation. Initially, the child walks a few steps away from mommy and then runs back to mommy because child is afraid to lose mommy. This is called rapprochement. And the child hugs mommy's legs and won't let her go. And a good mother would not punish the child for venturing forth, for exploring the world. A good mother would encourage this, actually. She wouldn't feel insecure. She wouldn't blackmail the child emotionally. She wouldn't threaten the child with punishment. But not all mothers are good. Some mothers would not allow the child, do not allow the child to separate from them because they're emotionally dependent on the child or because they're highly insecure and overprotective or for a variety of reasons. When the mother does not allow the child to separate from her, the child remains enmeshed with the mother and can never become an individual, ever. At that point, the child needs protection because this kind of mother is not only abusive, but this kind of mother prevents the child from becoming. The child cannot become, doesn't acquire personhood, personality, identity. It's a death sentence. So the child feels threatened, justly so. The child grieves the fact that it cannot develop and evolve and grow. And then the child invents an alternative universe, an alternative reality, where none of this is happening. Because real reality, actual reality, has become intolerable and unbearable and very threatening. So the child escapes into an alternative reality, withdraws. The first thing the child does, it creates an imaginary friend. This imaginary friend is everything the child is not. This imaginary friend is all-powerful. This imaginary friend is godlike. This imaginary friend is all-knowing. It's everything the child is not. And is the great protector of the child. It protects the child. It insulates the child from the influence of the seriously bad mother. And then the child gradually merges with this imaginary friend and becomes one with it. And a narcissist is born. That's how a narcissist is born. And then the narcissist spends the rest of his natural life looking for another mother. Because he has failed with the first mother. He needs to find another mother, a mother substitute. This is called repetition compulsion. So there is a repetition and it's compulsive. He keeps looking for a mother figure. Now, again, it's not about genitalia. A mother figure could be a good friend, for example. Doesn't have to be an intimate partner of the opposite sex. It could be a good friend. It's a maternal figure. And so the narcissist keeps looking for a maternal figure with the hope that he can reenact the childhood, can have a second chance at a second childhood. And this time he's going to get it right. This time he is going to separate and become an individual. There's a craving to become, and there's a grief over not having been given the chance to become. It's a grief reaction. So the narcissist is compelled to find someone who would feel safe enough to separate from a secure base. The clinical term is a secure base. And so the narcissist, for example, finds a potential intimate partner. So he converts her into a maternal figure. She becomes his mother. And in order for her to become a mother, she needs to divorce reality because she is not his mother.
Mm-hmm.
So she needs to become his mother in a fantasy. She can never become his mother in reality. She can become his mother only in a fantasy. So we call it the shared fantasy. Narcissist creates a shared fantasy within which his intimate partner, for example, becomes his mother. And then he begins a dynamic, the dynamic of the shared fantasy with the intimate partner. Now, if you want, I can describe the dynamic. You didn't ask me about it, so I will shut up here. And then
You
the next
know,
question.
it makes me think, we operate in circles. We have friends, we have family, um, we work, right? We work with others. It's bringing up so many personalities I've known over the years, and regardless of what, the circumstances were or what group we were in. But is there you did touch on this actually, there is some relation to the narcissist being raised in under these circumstances, and then the type of personality you can attract, but it's not that you attract it more than you seek it. Would you agree with that? That you just seek that type of, those traits in friends, partners, work people, and
I would
and
agree
those.
with the modification. I would agree with the modification of this statement. It's
Mm-hmm.
not that we seek what we used to have, but we seek what we never had. So
Okay.
if we never had love, if we were never loved
Mm-hmm.
as children, we were never loved. Definitely if we were never loved unconditionally.
Right.
And if we never received love that had not been conditioned on performance, then we would seek someone to love us unconditionally. If we never had a functioning mother, we would look for a mother. If we never had a father's love, we would look for a father, daddy issues. We are not seeking, unless, except in pathologies, but healthy,
Mm-hmm.
normal people do
Right.
not seek, do not seek to reenact what they had.
Okay.
They seek to fulfill unmet needs. They want to find what they never got, what they've never received, what they've never been exposed to, what they've never, so the deficiencies, the lacks. So people, as I said, who have never been loved properly in childhood, they would go looking for an ideal love, an imaginary type of love that does not exist among adults. But
Mm-hmm.
they would go looking for it, and they would become love addicts.
Interesting.
They become love addicts. People who never had a mother, like the narcissist, they would go looking for a mother. People whose environment was never safe, for example, economically, they would go and look for economic security, economic safety. We look for what we have never had. That is the compulsion. Similarly, the narcissist is no exception. He has never had a functioning mother. He's looking for one. And now he converts you into his mother. But then a series of really bad dynamics starts because you're not his mother,
Of course.
but you're playing the role of his mother in his mind. Remember, you don't exist externally. You exist only internally. In his mind, he has rendered you his mother. You're already his mother. And because you're already his mother, he is engaging with you in interactions which are very bizarre and very destructive and very self-defeating,
Mm-hmm.
and that have nothing to do with normal relationships. Interactions which are essentially a reenactment or replay of something that has gone really wrong in his childhood. So you're trapped. It's as if you are time traveled, teleported into his childhood, there to assume the role of a mother,
Uh-huh.
and then he takes out on you, he kind of displaces onto you everything that has gone wrong with his mother, everything that went wrong with his mother. But he does it in a highly specific way. So the shared fantasy is very structured, very inexorable and very predictable, and you have nothing to do with it. That's one thing victims really, it's comforting for victims to know, to learn that it's not their fault. There's nothing they could have done, and there's nothing they have done that in any way has impacted the shared fantasy. Even the narcissist himself is trapped in the shared fantasy. He's a hostage of the shared fantasy. The shared fantasy is a third entity. There's you, there's a narcissist, and there's a shared fantasy. And the shared fantasy is a third entity that takes over both of you, hijacks you. It's hostile takeover. And then the shared fantasy makes use of both of you as some kind of theater production, a replay. And so it's highly sick. It's a huge problem, and narcissists keep hurting people all the time because shared fantasy is the only way they know how to relate to it.
So in these relationships where whether it's, a relationship between two people, romantic relationship, or friendships, or work relationships, because we do like to address how these sort of circumstances affect us in all aspects of our lives. Are assume it's two people, right? So it's the narcissist is seeking to fulfill something they did not have. What about the other person?
Same.
Same thing, right?
Same thing. The other person, for example, is seeking a figure that exudes confidence.
Right.
Because this kind of person, the intimate partner, for example, has grown up in a household where the parents were less than reliable, less than safe. They did not afford or provide what we call a secure base, or the parents have failed in their functions. They couldn't provide economically, or they couldn't. So when you grow up in an environment which is replete with uncertainty and indeterminacy and unpredictability and so on, you would look for someone who is a rock, someone who is a rock, someone who would stabilize everything, who would stabilize your labile moods, who would stabilize your emotions because your emotions threaten to overwhelm you, who would provide you with a safe environment which is utterly predictable, who would take over, who would be in charge, become a leader, who would be someone, rock. Borderlines use the word rock. So you would look for rock. If, on the other hand, you have learned at an early age to manipulate people with your neediness, you've learned that when you're sick, mommy pays you attention.
Right.
And when you express needs in a very demanding way, usually people will give in and succumb to your demands. When you learn this, you become a codependent. Codependents control from the bottom. Codependents use their neediness, ostentatious, conspicuous, expressed neediness. They use it as a weapon. They weaponize neediness. And they use the neediness to manipulate. They are highly Machiavellian. And this is called control from the bottom. So depends on your personal experience. We learn strategies. Life is about learning strategies. What works and what doesn't work. Depending on the environment you grew up in, some things work, some things don't work. So you develop this toolkit of strategies that used to work when you were a child, and then you carry it forward into adulthood. And then you're looking for someone with whom these strategies will work again. Because these strategies are highly specific. They are not going to work with everyone. They're going to work with highly specific people. So you're scanning, you're auditioning people. And then you say, okay, audition number 96, that's the guy or that's the girl. The strategies I've developed as a child work perfectly with this guy. I love him. I'm in love with him. That's love, essentially.
Seriously, I walked into this interview with several questions, and we're like at the middle of this, and I have even more. This is such an interesting topic. I feel like I could go on forever on it.
You don't need to apologize for asking questions. Supposedly that's what you should do in this.
So another question I have is, about seeking what you don't have. If it's a person who has grown up with conceivably an overabundance of unconditional love, what does that create in the future? Is it someone seeking freedom? Is it someone maybe that is it possible that that overabundance of unconditional love was suffocating? What kinds of what does that present, if it presents anything at all?
Anything that is over
Mm-hmm.
abundant is
Mm-hmm.
not good.
Right.
I think overabundance of unconditional love is just a long way of saying overprotectiveness
Mm-hmm.
or spoiling or pampering or pedestalizing the child or idolizing the child or
Mm-hmm.
worshiping the child or whatever. This is abuse.
It
This is
is.
abuse. It is abuse because it isolates the child from reality. It
Right.
prevents the child from interacting with reality.
Mm-hmm.
Consequently, the child fails to develop boundaries. Reality pushes back.
Mm.
Reality is harsh.
Sure.
Reality causes loss, and loss is a major engine of personal growth and development. We grow and evolve and develop
Mm-hmm.
psychologically through a sequence of losses, and only reality can cause you to lose something. And if you are isolated and cosseted and cotton balled and you're not allowed to interact with reality, you will never experience failure. You'll never experience loss. You'll never experience the consequences of your mistakes, bad choices, wrong decisions. You're isolated from reality. You will never grow. You will never evolve. You will remain, your development will be arrested. You will
Mm-hmm.
remain stuck. Similarly, these kind of parents tend to isolate the child from peer interactions
Mm-hmm.
because they regard peers as unworthy of the child or dangerous to the child or whatever. So they don't allow the child to interact with peers,
Mm-hmm.
which is, of course, extremely abusive. Because peers are the major engine of maturation, and peers provide context. And after a certain age, peers are the main source of education,
Mm-hmm.
especially sexual education, but not only.
Mm-hmm.
So these are abusive behaviors, and they have nothing to do with unconditional love. They have to do with the parents' insecurities and
Mm-hmm.
need and control freakery, need to
Mm-hmm.
control, and manipulativeness and possessiveness and so on. These are sick, totally pathological dynamics.
Pathological.
Unconditional love is when the parent loves the child for who it is, not conditioned on the child's performance. Unconditional love is conditioned on the child's behavior, but not on the child's performance. Now, this confuses many people. What do you mean? I mean the following. If the child misbehaves, an unconditionally loving parent would discipline the child and, if necessary, punish the child. That has to do with behavior. But an unconditionally loving parent would never penalize the child for failing to perform. An unconditionally loving parent would not link love to any type of accomplishment
Mm-hmm.
or performance. So, yes, behavior could be penalized and discipline should be imposed. However, if you love the child because of accomplishments and achievements and performance and appearances, then you don't love the child. Then you don't, it's not the child you're loving. You're loving the child's output. So this is unconditional love. The unconditionally loving parent has one major task: to push the child away. That's the major role of the parent.
Mm-hmm.
The good parent, or what Winnicott called the good enough mother, the
Mm-hmm.
good parent pushes the child away from the parent because the child needs to separate from the parent, needs to confront the world, needs to experience failures and losses, needs to evolve, needs to mature, needs to walk away, needs to disappear from the parent's life optimally. So, the test of good parenthood: are you pushing your child away or are you holding it back? tied to your apron strings or whatever, whatever
Mm-hmm.
passes for
Apron
apron
strings.
strings nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you love the child unconditionally, then you let it go. There was a Persian poet. His
Mm-hmm.
name was Al-Khayyam,
Okay.
and he wrote, "Where if you love the bird, you should let her out of the cage."
Mm-hmm.
That is a sign of love.
Mm-hmm.
The ability to let go for the benefit of the party that you love.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes in romantic relationships as well. If
Sure.
you really love your partner,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the best thing to do is to let him go because you're not good for him, or together you're not good. There's incompatibility. You're not happy. He's not happy. Whatever the reason may
Mm-hmm.
be, you need to have the strength and the resilience to let go. Letting go is the test of good parenting. And
It's
so, yeah, please go ahead.
it's the way that I can sort of how that resonates for me is I have two children who I love very much, but it's a matter of when they're young, when they're adolescents. In my opinion, it was to raise them so well that they wouldn't need you later, right? That they
Yeah.
could have their own lives and not, you will always be there for them, but raise them well enough that they won't need to come back or will be fine living their own lives regardless of successes and failures, understanding, that they could dust themselves off and move on, and with that level of confidence. I'll share a little bit. I'm Hispanic. Hispanics don't like to let go, right? Everything is about keeping the family together almost forever. And historically, it's been living nearby, even living in the same household. Once you're married, once you have a family, and then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that was something that that was a cycle I felt in my family needed to be broken, that everyone should be able to live their own lives, stay close and stay in contact, but that concept of people, generations living in the same home for so long just seems so unnatural. Um,
Depends, I think, on the dynamics between the people.
mhm.
But if people are intrusive and controlling and manipulative, and yeah, then it's bad.
Hispanic thing. It's definitely
But
is.
I didn't actually answer your question, by the way, which is a
Mhm,
habit of mine. You
mhm.
asked me these kind of people who've been exposed to overabundance of
Sure.
so-called
Mhm,
unconditional
mhm,
love. And so,
mhm,
how would they react? Well, they would miss it. They would want to perpetuate it. So they would look for a partner who would also be overprotective and spoiling and pampering and so on.
mhm.
In most cases, in the
Okay.
majority of cases,
Mhm,
because when they exit the parental nest or parental home,
mhm.
this is what they miss. This is what they don't have. We're all looking for what we don't have, remember? So this is what they don't have, and they want to perpetuate it. A
Mm,
tiny minority would rebel against this, and they would become psychopaths and so on. So
mhm.
a tiny minority of people may actually become criminalized, antisocial, and so on and so forth, because of the freedom that they lacked, the freedom that were not afforded as children. But that's a tiny minority because this kind of treatment by the parents is very addictive. It's very addictive, and it creates a sense of safety, creates a sense of I can get away with anything. I will never pay the price. There will be no consequences to my actions, and so on. So it's addictive. And so this kind of person will continue to look for a partner, intimate partner, or friends, or whatever, who would do the same. However, there's a pitfall here because of the belief that these people believe that they're immune to the consequences of their actions.
Ooh.
So they are likely to act in ways which are self-endangering, self-defeating, and self-destructive. So you find in prison many people who have been pampered and spoiled and cosseted, as children, they grew up to believe that they can do no wrong, that whatever they do, there'll be no price to pay, you know, and then they do something, and there is a price to pay, and it's called prison.
Mm-hmm.
So you find many of these there, you know. Psychopathy, the genesis of psychopathy is mostly a neurobiological disease. There are brain abnormalities, severe brain abnormalities, physiological abnormalities. It's someone whose brain is, you know, kaput.
Mm-hmm.
But psychopathy is triggered by this kind of treatment, parental treatment. It's there, it's latent, it's waiting to erupt, and then it's triggered by either by overprotectiveness, spoiling, pampering, or by the exact opposite, total neglect and abdication, absenteeism of the parent. What I think many psychologists fail to appreciate is that both situations are addictive. When you are pampered and spoiled and so on, you get addicted to it. It's wonderful, isn't it? Who wouldn't want to? It's like a five-star hotel, a resort for life.
Every day.
Every day you'd look for a
Uh-huh.
partner who would continue to do this for you, take care of all your needs, and you know, always praise you and adulate you. But the opposite is also true. When your parents are neglectful and absent, disinterested in you, couldn't care less, this is also addictive because of the freedom. The freedom this affords is intoxicating.
Mm.
It also leads to the belief that you can do no wrong because there's no voice that tells you that what you're doing is wrong. And so it's also an addictive state. Either way, this produces the equivalent of a psychopath because there's a psychopath who's been abandoned and neglected by his parents, learned to grow up all by himself, and adores the freedom that comes with it and would never let go of this freedom. And the freedom means that he can do anything he wants. He's a law unto himself. And there's a psychopath who grew up in spoiling, overprotective, pampering environment and believes that he's entitled to this and will become very aggressive if he doesn't receive it. And so here's a psychopath as well. He's goal-oriented. His goal is to perpetuate this kind of environment. The narcissist, on the other hand, is someone who has experienced intermittent parenting, an environment that is not clear, sometimes adulating, sometimes neglectful, sometimes abandoning, sometimes present, sometimes you're the greatest, sometimes you're a zero, you're nobody, so you're a loser. So these mixed signals, this highly confusing environment where the parent tells you, for example, let me give you an example of mixed signaling. I love you, but I expect you to perform. So this is a mixed signal because if you love me, what does it matter if I'm performing or not as a child?
Right.
Like you have to love me because of who I am, not because of what I do.
So how do you separate, clearly that's one message. I love you. I don't believe in I love you, but that's love is love. You either love or you don't love, right? But how, especially with a younger child, how do you differentiate between pride, I'm proud that you did this and that you achieved certain thing, and can that be confusing for a child?
Depends. If you are consistently proud, even when the child makes mistakes and
Mm-hmm.
is wrong,
Mm-hmm.
then of course that's very bad signaling because it
Mm-hmm.
means you can never do wrong. Like the
Right.
child gets a message, you can never do wrong. Everything you do is always right. Everyone else is wrong. You're always right. Everyone else is wrong. And a
Oh.
narcissist is born.
Mm-hmm.
No? Your teacher is wrong for having treated you this way. The principal of the school is wrong for having disciplined you. The coach is wrong for not having included you in the football team or whatever. So everyone else is wrong. You're right. That creates a narcissist.
Mm.
If pride is expressed in a way that is grounded and real, like there's pride only when the accomplishment is exceptional,
Mm-hmm.
not for every accomplishment and not always, regardless of accomplishment, but only when the accomplishment deserves praise and being proud and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So discriminatory pride.
Ooh.
and when the pride is disconnected from expressions of love. So if you tell the child, I'm so proud of you, and then you hug the child, and you kiss the child, and you buy the child a gift, that is a very confusing message. It means I'm proud of you, and this led me to kiss you. I'm proud of you, and this led me to hug you. This is the reason I'm hugging you. I'm hugging you and kissing you because I'm proud of you. So this confuses love and pride.
Mm-hmm.
So the message I'm proud of you should be reserved for exceptional achievements and should be divorced from any expression of love, because this could be very confusing. It is feedback. It is input regarding one's accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
A boss can be proud of his workers. A colleague could be proud of his colleagues' accomplishments. I mean, pride should never be confused with love, but many parents do confuse it with love. And the message a child gets is, my parents love me only when I accomplish things, only when the neighbors are envious,
Mm-hmm.
only when I outdo the neighbor's son, only when they love me, only when. And this is conditional love.
Sam, there's no handbook for this. I mean, I know you've got your books. I know that, and we can talk about that in a bit. Um, with everything you've mentioned, it makes me think of, and I'm not sure if this would be the correct terminology, but it makes me think of generational trauma. Is there a way to break these cycles? So if you were raised under any of these circumstances that you've mentioned already, how do you not raise your own children that way? How is that? How do you
No
move?
problem.
Yeah, these cycles that are going to be created. I think, you can learn throughout life. Obviously, I would hope we're learning more over time versus regressing. But I had my daughter at night, my first child at 19, and then there's a 7-year gap between my two children. What I knew with my son versus my daughter was very different, whether it was in what I had learned in life through my own successes and failures, which the failures have worked out so well in my life because I've grown and expanded because of that. But that 7-year gap, I think, really had an impact on how I raised each of those children through my own learnings. But how deep is are these experiences with our mothers or fathers or whoever raises, and how possible is it to break these cycles? How are my children
Mm.
not going to raise their children in whatever version of myself they got? And that would be true for any parent, I would think.
Well, there's nothing wrong for your child to be a variant of you,
Hmm.
as long as you're a good
Sure.
person with values and so on. I
Hmm.
mean, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Hmm.
We know of two ways that identity forms. We have positive identity formation. Positive identity formation is, I'm going to be like my mother.
Hmm.
And we have negative identity formation. I'm never going to be like my mother,
Right.
ever.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
there are two paths to identity formation. And if
Hmm.
you're a positive person, then positive identity formation is a great thing, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, we know from studies of Holocaust survivors,
Hmm.
there have been many studies of the descendants and the offspring of Holocaust survivors. And we know that the trauma has been handed over
Hmm.
intergenerationally and impacted at least the first generation of offspring. It attenuated and mitigated and ameliorated with further generations. Like the trauma is
Hmm.
much less in the grandkids generation, and then the grandparents die and the trauma is over. I mean, like
Hmm.
the transmission is over.
Okay.
So it seems that there are several things that affect whether there's transmission or not. Number one,
Hmm.
awareness, self-awareness.
Hmm.
Many trauma survivors deny the trauma, bury the trauma, reframe the trauma, or deny that they are victims or have been victimized in a traumatic way and so on. So if you sweep things under the rug, if you deny things and so on, that's bad. that creates really bad dynamics and actually amplifies the trauma and guarantees intergenerational transmission.
Mm.
The self-awareness and the courage to accept that you have been damaged by the trauma. Number two is developing strategies to cope with transmission of trauma. There are. To do so, you need to resort to a professional and to work with professionals.
Mm-hmm.
If you deny that anything is wrong with you and you say, yeah, I've gone through the Holocaust, but it was nothing. I'm okay now. I'm like, what are you talking about? Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
You should be in therapy for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who are you kidding? And that's the majority of them.
Right.
Like the majority said, it's okay, it's behind me. I put it behind me. I'm okay now. And so that's bad. You need help. You need help in order to not transmit it further, not hand it over to the next generation. Forward, heading forward, yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in the wrong way. The third element is to render the trauma an element in daily existence. In other words, for example, to discuss the trauma, to explore the trauma together with the younger generations, to embed the trauma in a context, make sense of it somehow. So exposing the trauma, I say that sunlight disinfects trauma. Exposing the trauma reduces its potency, its power, dramatically. We know it from rape victims. Rape victims who do not discuss the rape, deny it, refuse to acknowledge it, or say, I don't want to confront my rapist. I just want peace. There was an incident. I want to forget about it.
Move on. Mm-hmm.
They're in bad shape, and they're in bad shape for many years, and they transfer the trauma onward, forward, and so on. So we know that it's a really bad idea. Ironically, it's a bad idea to discuss trauma immediately after the trauma. We used to make this mistake. It was called debriefing. Today, we never do this. You need to let the trauma sink in and kind of settle in for a few weeks. So the first few weeks, actually, the indication is to not discuss the trauma. But then you definitely need to process the trauma. And the only way to do this is head on, to be courageous enough to confront it. What has happened to you in the Holocaust, as a rape victim, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, you need to involve your family members. You need to involve your children if you have any. Of course, you need to adapt to the age and, the message needs to be tailored, customized to each age and so on. But it needs to be permanent. So the child is exposed to the story at age 3. When the child reaches age 13, he needs to be exposed to the same story on a different level. This is an ongoing process, it's lifelong. When the trauma is acknowledged, when it is tackled, it dies. It has no power. It's disempowered. So these are the 3 elements. Regrettably, the overwhelming vast majority of trauma victims don't do any of the 3. They are not self-aware. They deny the trauma. They refuse to accept professional help. They don't discuss the trauma. They do everything wrong. And the end result is the children suffer. Yeah.
And aside from that, I mean, we might go a little off topic on this, but aside from the potential impacts to future generations, what are the imminent impacts, right? What happens with that person when they are not addressing these kinds of events that occur in their life, right? If they bury it, sweep it under the rug, pretend it didn't happen, or I'm moving on, I'm over it. It already happened. I can't do anything about it. What happens to the person in their lifetime, right?
First, we need to accept that traumas are not objective things. They're subjective things.
Mm-hmm.
You and I can be exposed to the same event. I'll walk
Right.
away unscathed and unaffected,
Mm-hmm.
zero impact, and you will be devastated for life.
Right.
So trauma clearly is not objective. It's not something, external that you can,
Right.
it's people react differently to different things and so
Yeah, it's not the same for everyone. Mm-hmm.
It's not the same. And it's not a clinical entity. It's not like if we are both exposed to a virus, both of us will get sick. That's a clinical entity. But if we are both exposed to an event, one of us will be traumatized, the other will not. So
Right.
it's not like a virus. It's not a clinical entity. It's a reactive process. And it has a lot to do with your specs, with your specifications, your personal history, your experiences, your prior trauma, and a million other things,
Right.
just about a million other things. So this is the first thing which we need to clarify, because people get the impression that the trauma is something that's happening out there. And if you're exposed to it, you catch it. It's like contagious. It's like you get infected with the trauma.
Right,
That's
right.
not the case at all.
Uh-huh.
And then a trauma is just a name for energy. It's a packet of energy. And this bolt, lightning bolt, the trauma, enters your mind. And then it begins to rearrange the furniture or destroy it altogether. It is energy rampant in your mind, energy out of control. Everything is affected. Absolutely everything, if you end up being traumatized. And then again, it depends which type of trauma, because we distinguish between two major families of trauma. We have post-traumatic stress disorder. This is exposure to a life-threatening event, exclusively life-threatening event, natural disaster, accident, plane crash, or whatever. Exposure personally or witnessing it. Also, as a witness, you can acquire PTSD, but only life-threatening events. And then we have complex trauma or CPTSD, where repeated exposure to maltreatment, abuse, torture, and so on and so forth can ultimately lead to a state of mind that is post-traumatic. But the two don't share, CPTSD and PTSD, it's very misleading. They don't share many clinical features. They are completely distinct. They're not the same. For example, in PTSD, we have flashbacks, whereas in CPTSD, we do not have flashbacks. So these are not the same conditions. If you deny the trauma, as Freud had realized long ago, 100 and something years ago, if you deny the trauma, this packet of energy will continue to circulate and rebound within your mind, continue to destroy your mind, and later your body as well, until you harness it somehow, this energy, till you somehow reframe it or create a narrative that incorporates it or come to terms with it or do something about it. The worst thing you can do is ignore it or deny it.
Right.
The worst for you as well as for others. And the number of implications, number of consequences is huge. Like anything from sleep disorders and startle reaction, like jumpiness, and anything from this to psychosis. And I mean, the damage is tremendous. And the longer you keep the trauma caged inside your mind, the longer you refuse to confront it because you're afraid to be re-traumatized, the more extensive the damage, at some point, irreversible.
Oh, wow.
At some point. Yeah. So you need to work on it.
Professor Sam Vaknin, thank you so much for joining us. Where can our viewers, listeners find you if they want to hear more about you?
I'm inescapable. Just Google Sam Vaknin. You'll find YouTube channels, Wikipedia page. I'm going to name it. It's just Google my name.
Links to your books, everything.
Books, everything. I've been.
Everything.
I'm a dinosaur. I've been online since the inception of the internet. That's the truth, by the way.
Oh,
And
excellent. Wonderful. This was a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it too.
There's been a lot of good information here that I know our viewers are really going to appreciate and enjoy as well. So